Hello, I'm Caroline Campbell and welcome to the Courtauld Gallery for a private tour of the Impressionist and Post-Impressionist works in the collection at the Courtauld. The Courtauld has a really remarkable collection of paintings from late 19th century France. It's small, but it's very beautiful and very choice, like the gallery itself. And in this tour, I'm going to introduce you to several of the most famous paintings, including works by Manet, Cézanne, Gauguin, and Van Gogh. People often ask what Impressionism actually is, and to be truthful, it's quite hard to define. The word was used first by a critic who was reviewing an exhibition in 1874 in which this painting of two ballerinas by Degas was included. This was an exhibition by a group of young painters, artists, etchers who just came together really because they couldn't exhibit in the Salon, or the main forum for public exhibition of art in Paris. And what this critic meant was really that he thought these painters tried to convey the impression of something, and they weren't actually concerned with long academic study and thinking about a painting before they put their idea onto canvas. So it was something more fleeting, something like, for instance, dancers moving across the stage like this, or in the landscapes by Monet and others that we associate particularly with this group of painters. The name Impressionism isn't really one that they used at the time. They wouldn't have seen themselves as working together necessarily, but that is how we see them today. I'm standing in front of Monet's Autumn Effect at Argenteuil, painted in 1873. Monet was one of the painters who exhibited with the group called the Impressionists, including Renoir, sometimes Cézanne, and also Degas. And this painting, for many, exemplifies what an Impressionist painting might be. It's a landscape. It's a view which looks initially to be timeless. It's really about the trees on the riverbank. But if you look into the picture, you'll see there's a town at the back of it. And that's a town called Argenteuil, which actually in the 1870s was at the centre of the industrialisation which was surrounding Paris. So the view is a view which could be at any time, but also is very specifically situated in the 1870s. The way in which the painting is done as well really shows that it's an Impressionist painting, if you want to use that word. It's very, very quickly executed in parts, and in other bits, although it's been very much reworked, such as the trees over here, you look as if you're seeing a fleeting impression, and also the effect of the trees, of the water reflecting on the trees. Over here at this side, Monet was dissatisfied with certain parts of the paint, so he intervened in a way that's very unusual in paintings before this date. He scratched out some of the paint with the end of his brush so that it would seem, you would get the effect of the light coming through the trees, thus creating effect which was very immediate, almost as if, I suppose, the same sort of effects that one gets from photography. Manet's bar at the Folies Bergère is, for many people, the epitome of painting in late 19th century France. It shows a barmaid at the Folies Bergère. We're not sure what she's looking at or what the expression on her face is, but she's so quiet in the midst of this scene of absolute melee and cacophony going on around her. She's in the centre of the Folies Bergère, one of the places of public entertainment that was very new in late 19th century Paris. She's serving at the bar, but there's almost a suggestion that she might be serving herself up as a proposition too for some of the men who are waiting there. And in the background, the paint breaks up into these extraordinary details, including, you might see, an acrobat coming down at the left-hand corner. The painting is really about change, and all that people found was disturbing, and yet at the centre of it, she's so quiet and calm. Manet, of course, wasn't really an Impressionist. He didn't exhibit with the group, and he didn't really associate himself with them. Yet for many people today, he really is seen to exemplify what was novel and exciting about painting in late 19th century Paris. Courtauld has the most impressive collection of Cézannes in Britain, and one of the most famous paintings is the picture of Mont Sainte-Victoire that I'm standing before. This really typifies in many ways Cézanne. Cézanne, again, sometimes exhibited with the Impressionist group, but he really wasn't associated with them. He painted in a very, very different fashion, and you can see that from this painting, where everything is worked up in blocks of colour, and yet it's also quite traditional in the way in which he anchors the composition with the tree, the great pine tree, at the left-hand corner. The wonderful thing about the collection of Cézannes at the Courtauld is that it really ranges from the start of his work in the early 1870s to the early 20th century, just before he died, including paintings such as the Lake of Annecy from the 1890s, where again form seems to break down into these areas of colour. The painter Paul Gauguin was born in South America, and although his varied career included stints in the Merchant Navy and as a stockbroker, when he turned to painting, he was fascinated by what he considered the primitive or the exotic. And the three paintings in the Courtauld collection, Nevermore, which I'm standing in front of, Terreoa or The Dream, and Haymakers in Brittany, exemplify this. We call Gauguin a post-impressionist painter, and that really means that although he was very much inspired by the impressionist painters, unlike them, he didn't really want to capture what he saw. He wanted to delve into his mind and to use that to produce something which was really his imagination rather than necessarily just the world around him. Nevermore is a very peculiar painting. We see a woman lying on a bed in a way that's reminiscent of the paintings of Titian and Veronese that Gauguin would have seen in the Louvre, but she's a Tahitian girl. In fact, it's been suggested that she is quite possibly Gauguin's mistress, and she's lying on a bed which is like something from the oddest boudoir possible in the 1890s, the decade this was painted. It's an extraordinary fusion of the Tahitian world that Gauguin came into and lived into and the West that he considered as decadent. Gauguin painted with Van Gogh in a period which was probably the most tumultuous in both artists' lives, in the Yellow House in Arles in late 1888. And the self-portrait by Van Gogh I'm standing in front of was painted in response to Gauguin's departure from this arrangement around Christmas time, 1888, when Van Gogh, despairing that his friend was departing for Paris, seems to have taken a razor to his ear and to have mutilated himself. This painting was made in early January 1889, after Van Gogh had been released from hospital, and it's often seen as a very sad painting because people looking at this picture remember, of course, that Van Gogh killed himself little more than 18 months later. But instead it seems to be a painting that's really about Van Gogh's artistic credo. You see that there's an easel behind him, and he's dressed in rough clothes as he considers himself to be a rough, ordinary man, and he painted in a very, very rough fashion, rather different to the way in which Gauguin did in Nevermore that we've just looked at. But unlike Gauguin, Van Gogh was passionately believed that one should look at the world around one and use that as the way for getting into one's imagination. And you see that in images like his self-portrait, and also in the peach blossoms in the crowd that we see also in the gallery, where he shows a scene in Provence, but with a strange addition of Mount Fiji, because he believed that Japan produced some extraordinarily perfect art. One sees this also too in the Japanese print that's placed behind him in this painting that really one can see as a summation of his artistic credo or beliefs at the moment where he was most miserable and unhappy in his life. I've come to the end of today's tour, but we've only looked at a very few of the treasures to be found in the Impressionist and Post-Impressionist collections at the Courtauld, including Seurat's portrait of his mistress, which is behind me. So do come and visit and discover one of the most important collections in the world of Impressionist and Post-Impressionist paintings by yourself. Thank you.